Well, good morning or good morning or good afternoon, I guess, depending on where you're located across the world. I do want to thank you for joining our webinar today on player communication best practices. My name is Tom Robbins, and I'm with PlayFab, our host here, and we appreciate everyone taking the time. If you're not aware, this is part of a series of ongoing educational opportunities that we're providing. We do announce webinars at a pretty regular clip. You can find them on playfab.com/webinars, and they're free to sign up for. And definitely, if you're interested in requesting a specific topic, please let us know. We're always actively looking at more types of webinars that we can get out. Today, my pleasure to introduce Scott Willoughby, who's our Director of Game Operations Success here. And Scott is very focused on making sure that people understand live game operations and how live game operations will have an impact on their business and on their game, and then providing industry best practices on ways that we can make that happen. So Scott's going to talk to us today about player communication best practices. If you have questions, feel free to send them in on the question pane, which you can find usually on the right-hand side. If you send it in, we might ask questions as we go along, but we definitely will make sure as we get towards the end that we cover the questions that we can. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Scott, who's going to talk about player communication best practices. Scott?
Great. Thank you very much, Tom. Hey, everybody. Glad to be here again, talking to you. This is Scott Willoughby, your game ops guy that likes to talk to you about these things. So today, we're going to talk about player communication best practices. This is something that if you read the blog and you read my articles, or you've seen anything I've written over the years at any of the various companies I've worked with, this is something I talk about a lot. My educational background is in communications and film, so voice and talking to customers and creating compelling stories is something that's really a big deal for me, and I think really goes to the heart of what makes live game operations a bit different from the old model, right? It's in a world where when you're operating a live game, operating a game as a service, as a business, it's all about creating those player relationships and those long-term relationships. That's really all about communication. When you change things in your game, when you update new offers, you need to be able to tell the story of your game, tell the story of your offers, tell the story of your player's relationship with your game to them. And that's all a communications challenge, right? It's all a marketing challenge and a storytelling challenge. So it really behooves you, if you want to be successful in this business, to spend some time and some effort thinking about how you're going to do your communications. So that's what we're going to talk about today, a lot of the style and quality issues that you want to focus on and think about when you create your communication strategy. And there's just another intro slide. We don't need that. We'll skip right ahead to style and voice. So here's the thing. We're making games, right? Games are supposed to be fun. They're supposed to be entertaining, sometimes scary, but they are not business-to-business propositions. You are not a bank. You are not in healthcare. You're not selling construction equipment. Don't sound like you are. Like, have fun with it. So there are a couple of kinds of techniques and sort of models that you might want to consider. You have two sorts of things, right? You have your in-world voice. This is content that happens in the game. These are things like dialogues and tutorials and in-game content, right? This is usually a character speaking or speaking in the voice of the game. If you have a fantasy RPG, for instance, it might sound very sort of Elizabethan or Shakespearean dialect. If you're in a sci-fi world, it's going to sound very sciencey and techy and everything. Then you have the narrative voice, your narrative voice. This is you as a business talking to your customers, but you don't want to sound like a business, right? You want to sound like their friend, like the narrator, the character who's guiding them through the game, presenting them opportunities. So these can be transactional conversations, they can be account-based details, they can be sales, promotions, offers, but the important thing is, while you don't necessarily have to match the sort of strict fantasy or strict genre voice of your characters in world, you certainly want to sound like you're part of it. Like, you want to keep the customer living in that world of your game when they're there. So here's a few examples that I put up that I think are really good examples of speaking to a customer as the business, but using that voice that is familiar and sort of approachable and congenial. This first one up here with Deadpool, it's a ratings prompt out of Marvel Contest of Champions. Great job by them. They take Deadpool, who's kind of a relatable, funny, smart-ass sort of character. And they have this very casual sort of, hey buddy, you enjoying Marvel Contest of Champions? It's a great pre-prompt to then ask for an app rating. Super successful. Below that is one from Adventure Capitalist from Congregate, and Hyper Hippo. One of the games is actually a PlayFab customer, works on PlayFab. Look at this, looking for a quick boost, explaining to you the value of doing this to watch an ad in game. We talked about this last time. This is a great way to ask people to watch an ad and add immediate value to them. But it's having fun with it and conveying the benefit. Then you've got another rating prompt here from Draw Something. And again, it's very casual, very fun, non-obtrusive way to ask for users to do something. So really think about the style and the voice you're using to talk to people, and make it approachable. Be someone that they want to talk to and want to engage with, right? Then we look at channels. So this is something I am very fond of saying, and you'll hear me say it a lot. You only have a customer as long as you have a channel. With games, especially in the mobile world, and even on console and PC and Mac, this is really, really true, right? Unless your game has perfect engagement and perfect retention, you only have your customer as long as you're able to talk to them, right? If a user stops playing your game, stops visiting, you can only keep them as a customer. You can only try to win them back and keep getting value and keep that relationship with them if you have ways to reach them out of the game. This means you need to have your push messaging enabled. You need to get email permission. You need to get them to like or follow you on social. You need to have ways to talk to them if for some reason they stop playing your game, which is never going to happen, of course, because we all make perfect, wonderfully engaging games that nobody ever stops playing. Wouldn't that be nice? So you want to think about a few different communication channels. Obviously, one is in-game, right? When I say in-game, and I'll distinguish between in-game and in-app here. In-game is, again, sort of that narrative voice, the communication you have with them that is part of the game. These are things like tutorials and whatnot, possibly experiences that teach them how to use the store, for instance. In-app is any messaging you give them while they are in the app. So you see this picture on the left. This is Crossy Road from Hipster Whale. Super, super successful casual game in the App Store right now. You see there's a lot of communication going on here, and I'll talk about all of it, but technically the very top line, that's sort of in-game. Those are things relative to the game itself. Top score, current score, currency balance, and then all those bars in the middle, those are what I would call in-app. They're sort of relating to the app. They're you talking to the player directly, but they're happening within the app experience. Then you look at external stuff. And this is, again, like you can see here, these are things like your push messaging, email messaging, web or social, and then also platforms sometimes. Platforms like Xbox One or PlayStation 4, Steam, they have ways to communicate with your users within the platform that's not within your game. And these can be very valuable as well. Sometimes they can be difficult to implement. Sometimes you need special relationships with the platform owners. But when you can use those tools, absolutely. Use any tool you can, right? Any tool that makes sense for you to be able to keep a relationship and keep a dialogue going with your customer is valuable. Some other things that might be in-app, going back just a minute, you can look at these as ads, and this is not just third-party ads that you're publishing. These are your own ads, in-house ads, talking about sales or offers, different promotions, transactionals, banners, interstitials that you run. Those are all ads. A lot of times they're going to be your ads to tell customers about things, but anything promotional like that is technically an ad. And when you're thinking about your systems to implement these things, that's the easiest way to think about it, really. The same way you'd be able to push a third-party ad to a user, you want to be able to push your own messaging and your own advertising for things in your game. Looking at this picture from Crossy Road, I want to go back to this for a second. They're doing a lot of things right here, and I want to kind of walk through this to show you. So, first up at the top, you see the in-game messaging, right? You've got your current score and your top score. This is good aspirational goal setting. I just completed a game, but it taunts me to want to play another to keep trying to beat that high score. You see my currency balance, which gives me progress awareness. It lets me know how close I am to getting another award of some kind. Then you go down and see these three in-app messages, which are really good as well. You see the reward opportunity, right? It's an add view reward. I immediately see the progress here. I've got 91 gold to go down at the bottom. I see that I have 9 currently. I know how much I need to get. I know I want to earn that. So I know there's a couple things here. I can earn some right now by watching an ad. Instant reward, instant value proposition. I also know that I'm going to get a free gift in 6 minutes, so I think I should keep playing probably for 6 minutes, right? Or I know that I'm going to have to come back in for another session soon. So that creates an appointment mechanic, a session extension mechanic. These are really good things. And then, of course, the reward target, as I mentioned, is, again, goal setting. It keeps me engaged. It gives me a time frame for reward. It sets clear definitions for what I can expect and why I should want to keep playing the game. Very good things. We're going to talk about goal setting a little bit later in the presentation, but this is a good example to look at and think about the psychology behind how all these messages work together to create a very compelling engagement experience for a user. So once you get the idea of which channels you're going to go through and why it's good to have a good voice and style to your messaging, let's talk about quality. Because I'm sure, you know, we're all game developers, we're all gamers, we've all played games that are really bad with the quality of their messages. They spam you with needless automated push notifications that you end up ignoring or you disable. They, you know, interrupt your game experience all the time with stuff that you don't want to see and doesn't create clear value for you. So what I've come up with over the years is my 5 theory. I've written about this in a blog post before, so you may be familiar with it. But 5 is a couple things. One, it's an acronym. It stands for fun, informative, valuable, and engaging. But it's also 5 because if you do it well, your players are going to feel awesome if you give them 5, right? If your communication is giving them 5, they're going to be happy and they're going to feel good about it and they're going to want to treat you like the Mario Brothers here. So let's get into it. So first bullet point is fun, right? Making your communication enjoyable. Now this goes back to voice and style, using a creative voice, having fun with your brand and sort of flexing it. This image here is a message that we did in Magic Duels of the Planeswalkers 2015. And, you know, Magic is a very serious IP. You know, it's core fantasy, a lot of legacy. There's not generally a lot of flexibility with the brand, but we really pushed it into the digital experience and had some fun with it. You can see Garrick Wildspeaker, one of the Planeswalker characters in Magic, who's usually this very fearsome, you know, apex predator hunter brute guy. And we took him and we made sort of this papercraft cartoon out of him, and you know, add a little irony in making him, put him in a love ad around Thanksgiving. And it was a way that we had fun with the IP and played with it, and the players and the fans just loved it. It got a lot of coverage outside of the game when we posted it to Facebook. People just loved seeing a kind of cutesy take on what is normally a very serious IP, and it got great reaction. You know, this is the way we were announcing to people that we'd added new content to the game for free into their collections. People really, really liked it. So feel free to have fun with your material and with your intellectual property and your characters. A lot of times fans like that. They like seeing a fun take on it and message in a way that's enjoyable just for the design and the voice of the message itself. But, you know, don't pop messaging just so you can have fun with it. You know, you also want to be informative. This is just being efficient, not overusing the channels, making sure you have substance to a message, that it's not just a disruption, but that people know that when you pop a message to them, it's worth their time to look at it because it's going to tell them something valuable. You can see this is a message from Bejeweled Blitz letting me know that I have an opportunity to purchase a power-up. That it's a limited time, it's a special discount, gives me an idea of what it's going to do. Right there it shows me, you know, how much money I have available and how much this is going to cost me. It packs a lot of info with very, very little copy, and especially making it clear that this is a limited opportunity that I should avail myself of right now. That's good, and it gets down to the engagement point, which we'll get to in a little bit. But this is densely informative, but it's not a wall of text that I'm forced to read. So be informative, make sure there is content, there's substance to your messaging that you give people. Valuable. This I cannot stress enough, right? Always give a clear value proposition. This is, if you want to make sure your messages are read, your channels are active, that people want to make use of your channels, give them value every single time, right? If they know that every time they get a message from you, it's worth it to click it because they're going to be able to get something for free, they will engage with your messaging, I promise. It's bribery, and it works like a champ. This is an example from Mountain Goat Mountain by Zynga, a new one. This is a fantastic example of creating clear value in a push messaging prompt. I just got awarded some coins, and then I get this award prompt that says, more free coins in an hour, set a reminder. Yeah, absolutely, that sounds great. Like, I understand the value of coins, I understand the value of my time, I want to know when I can collect more and possibly, get a new goat. So I click yes, and if you've read any of my previous blog articles, you know that I am a massive proponent of the pre-prompt interstitial here to preset people's expectations for a push notification request. I click yes, they've already pre-prompted me. Now it says, we'd like to send you push notifications. Oh, okay, that totally makes sense. You want to let me know I have more coins in an hour. I need to enable push so you can do that. Great, absolutely. I don't know the numbers because I don't work with Zynga on this game, but I would venture to guess that their acceptance rate for push notifications is astronomical. And it's because they set a clear value for engaging in the activity that they want me to engage in, right? Now I want to show you a not so great example of this. This is the same thing. It's a pre-push request from Konami's Swords and Poker. Now, on the surface, this looks great, right? Enable push notifications. It's a little on the nose. It immediately prompts me with something that I might be a little bit averse to, and then it goes into that it's going to award me with 5 gems. So that seems okay, right? They're displaying value and rewarding me and bribing me for an engagement they want me to take. Here's the problem. Immediately before I saw this, I'd just been given a store tutorial where they gifted me 40 gems to buy some kind of low quality, crappy little shield item or something like that. So when I've just seen that 40 gems gets me very, very little, when you offer to give me 5 gems to complete a very valuable engagement action for you, the value just isn't good enough. So when you're providing value, you need to make sure that it's enough to properly incentivize the action you want completed. This is one I skipped, and like 5 gems is not going to do anything for me. 5 gems is not worth the disruption of getting push notifications from this game. Even though it's a really fun game and I like playing it, I don't want it interrupting me for the piddly price of 5 gems. It's just not worth it to me. So always make sure that your value is good enough. Don't be cheap with your users. Give them something that is going to motivate them properly to complete the actions you want. It's a negotiation, right? You need to give them in order to get, right? It goes both ways. So then let's talk about engagement. So this is, these things I've used a lot of push messaging and in-app messaging examples. This is an example from a Facebook post from Bejeweled Blitz, and this is 2012. This is back in the day when I was actually running the community team for Bejeweled Blitz at PopCap. Engagement means always including a clear call to action. Don't be ambiguous about what you want people to do with your message. If you want to drive an engagement, if you want to drive an activity, provide a clear reward and then tell them exactly how to get it, exactly what you want them to do. The old Field of Dreams quote is, if you build it, they will come. That's not the case with this kind of messaging. It's if you ask them to come, they will come, right? Tell them exactly what you want them to do in order to get the reward that they're seeking, and it works like a champ. You'll see this is a post where we did, a silly little contest on a Wednesday. We said that if you liked the post, you'd have a chance to win 5 million coins. You had to participate by a certain time, and then it would be closed down. And you see down at the bottom there, over 82,000 likes, almost 1,000 shares, and over 1,500 comments on the post. This tactic was one of the ways that we were able to grow Bejeweled Blitz from 800,000 Facebook fans to almost 5 million in less than 9 months, right? When you get this sort of engagement with your content, the reach becomes massive, right? You get tons and tons and tons of reach out beyond your audience, out to their friends, out to other people in the community. And all of your users want to engage with you on this channel because they know they can get stuff from you. It goes back to that bribery side of the value proposition. They want to engage with you where they know they're going to get value. So creating value in all of your messaging channels gives you more avenues to reach them. And this is a great example. If a user has stopped playing Bejeweled Blitz, for instance, but they're following us on Facebook, and we put out a post that gets 82,000 likes and over 1,000 comments, it's going to end up in their feed and remind them that they should go play the game. May have just regained a user. And look, 5 million coins is a lot of coins in Bejeweled Blitz, but It's virtual currency. What does it matter to us? It doesn't cost us anything. Maybe that one player that wins will monetize a little less, but think about all the players that we just re-engaged and the value of that. So again, make sure you have a clear call to action and you're creating the right level of value. So that's 5 theory, but there are 2 other things that I want to talk about really quickly. That's being timely and being relevant. Timely is about being in the moment. It's a value enhancement. It's about giving somebody an offer when it makes the most sense to them and provides the most value to them. But it's also about being polite and considerate to your users. It means you don't send text messages or push messages when it's going to be disruptive. If you can target by time zone, do it. Don't send somebody a message when it's going to make their phone beep or blank or ring or whatever in the middle of the night when they're sleeping. That's a really great way to alienate your customers. So be considerate of their lifestyle and where they are in the world and you know what's going to be disruptive, and try to be a good steward of the power you have by having access to their phone screen. So timely is being considerate, but it's also about being relevant, and relevance goes to knowing who your customer is and providing them an offer that makes sense to them when it makes sense to them. This is an example from Minion Rush. You can see I've just finished a level, and at the very top you can see I failed that level. So they're immediately saying, hey, you had difficulty with this level, you've got a certain balance in your account, here, let's pop you an offer saying all power-ups last 5 seconds longer. Maybe that'll help you get past this level if you're getting stuck a little bit. It's a timely offer, and it's totally relevant to me. It's giving me something that makes sense for my problem, and it's giving it to me exactly at the time when it makes the most sense for me to avail myself of it. That's really smart messaging. Now, you got to be careful with this. You know, if this was an offer for something, you know, if I was in an RPG and I'm a new player and I've never spent $1, if I have a difficulty with a level and then you give me a prompt saying, hey, buy this level 49 battle axe that costs $99, that's going to bounce right off of me. If I'm level 2, I can't even use the thing, 1, and I've never monetized. What makes you think my first purchase is going to be a $100 weapon that I can't use and probably don't even understand? So that's part of being relevant, is communicating to your users in a way that makes sense for where they're at in the game and with their life cycle with your product. So now that we understand 5 theory, as well as timeliness and relevance, we've talked about voice, so you understand how to create quality messaging that'll resonate with your users and make sense for them. Let's talk about your goals. What is it you'd say you do here, right? So if you listened to my webinar last week, you'll know that I kind of categorized live game ops into 4 big areas. That's acquisition, engagement, conversion, and retention. So you can think about your messaging in the same way. And I encourage everybody, before you even launch your game, you want to sit down and think about what can you do for players at different stages of the life cycle and different types of players, your low engaged, your mid engaged, your high engaged, your whales. What can you do throughout your game's life cycle that makes sense for each of those players at different points in the game for each of these 4 areas? So you think about acquisition, you're going to think about social incentives and cross-promotion, because this is for players that you already have. So you're thinking about talking to them about ways you can encourage them to invite friends, help you acquire new players through their friend list and through virality. You're going to think about how you can use them to cross-promote into other games. You know, if you get to a point where you're launching a new game or a user is sort of lapsing out and you want a last-ditch effort to be able to recapture some value from them, how do you cross-promote them into somewhere else? So think about your messaging capabilities and your strategy around these things. Look at engagement. This is thinking about new features that you're going to have out or different things that people might not be exposed to, as well as events or quest kind of mechanics that you might have going on, player status and updates to the game as well. Any of these things that are going to either increase general engagement or convince players to engage with your game in a way they might not have been already. Great example for this is if you have a game that has PvP or multiplayer modes, and you know that is where you get real, value out of your players. Once they become PvP players, that's when their value really goes through the roof and their engagement really spikes. Well, then you need to watch and make sure that you're creating messaging to get in front of your players that are not participating in PvP and tell them about it, let them know about it, and if it's worthwhile to you, incentivize them to go participate. Because if that's a core behavior, a key behavior for your business, you want to motivate it, right? You want to get engagement in that area of your game. When you look at conversion, this is, also called monetization in the gaming industry, where we like to call it monetization, but it's really about, getting players to complete conversion actions. So this is sales and offers, new content that might be for sale, and even ads. If you're serving third-party ads, if you're ad monetized, this is about getting people to watch ads. You saw those great examples from that great example from Crossy Roads, and there was another one from the Venture Capitalist. Really good examples of clear motivation and really good value prop to get people to ad monetize, right? To watch advertisements to get the game value. And then when you look at retention, this is, new content, special bonuses, help content. If people get stuck, watch for points where people get stuck or are starting to lapse out of your game a little bit, and send them messages giving them tips to help them through the area, or special items, one-time bonuses to help them through the area, and keep them progressing, keep them with the game, and keep them coming back. Again, like we said, you only have a customer as long as you have a channel. So as long as you can talk to a player, you still have a chance to retain them. And a retained customer is always cheaper to keep than to replace, right? So you want to really focus on that. So again, before you even launch your game, or if your game is already launched, sit down and think about the places where a player is going to intersect with the experience and where you might have hurdles to help them overcome, or things that you want to engage them with. And think about these 4 areas and how you might talk to different players at different levels to get increased value out of these 4 different areas to really create your messaging strategy and program a really robust campaign that's going to keep your players engaged, involved, and hopefully monetizing. So then, this all sounds great. How do we do it all? So there are a few things you need to be able to execute on a really good messaging strategy. So we'll talk about requirements a little bit. First thing you need is information, and this comes down to analytics, really. You need to know about your players, what they're doing, their behaviors, and then once you implement any of these solutions, any of these messaging campaigns, you need to know the impact, right? So you need to be able to look at your analytics, and we have some good analytics in PlayFab, and there are plenty of other good analytics partners that people use for their games. But you need to know your game. You need to know how it's performing, what's working, where you're weak, where you're strong, and what sorts of activities you want to motivate among your players. The PvP example I gave is a great one, and I would venture to guess for most players that have player versus player functionality or multiplayer functionality, that is a really good engagement process for users. But I don't know. I haven't seen your game. It might be that your PvP players are your worst players, and that's not something you want people to do. But you're not going to know that, and I'm certainly not going to know it unless you have analytics to be able to look and say, hey, how do my engaged PvP players interact with the game as compared to people who don't participate? And that's where segmenting comes in, right? You need to be able to look at those segments, and for our premium subscribers to PlayFab, you have access to our segmenting instance here where you can build your own segments and create different groups of users based on activity in the game. In order to know how one group of people behaves versus another, you need to be able to create segments of those groups and look at their performance against each other. This is also really important when you get to delivery. In order to take on those issues of relevance and timeliness, putting messages in front of the right user at the right time, you need to be able to segment out and tell your game and your systems who that user is and when they should be messaged and why. Then, of course, you need delivery. So you need the ability to send push messages, which you can do with PlayFab. You need the ability to put in-app messages in your game, which you can do through PlayFab. If you want to do things like email, you're going to need an email service provider, but you can use the player data that you have as part of your PlayFab package. And you need the tools to be able to manage these things. But one of the big things you need is permission, right? You need to ask your players permission to engage in these channels. So that's good push notification practices. That's good email permission practices, using single sign-on processes like Facebook, for instance, Facebook single sign-on, or any of the other single sign-on that we support in PlayFab, or your own custom one, to be able to get email permission and access to those addresses, or get people participating in your Facebook community. You need to ask players for these things, and again, getting that permission is a value add to you. So make sure to give value back to the players. Make it a no-brainer for them to give it to you, and give you a chance to earn their trust and participate with them in those channels. You're going to need access to those players' accounts. Obviously, PlayFab, we have very, very robust player account management and background on all your players and their activity, so you can do that. And then you're going to need the tools to send messages, which we already talked about a little bit. But if you have all these things, if you're able to look at your player base, know which segments you should create, know which activities you should try to encourage, and then know what messages are working and which aren't, then you can start to really tweak and optimize. And if you have the permissions you need to have those open channels and then the tools to deliver within those channels, you're set. Then you can go and build that strategy and build those messages and do some creative writing and some work on your voice and craft really good messages for people. So you're going to get them super engaged with your game, keep them retained, and hopefully get them converting as well. This is the key to building valuable players. You know, aside from your golden cohort, and if you get really lucky with some acquisition campaign, very few players come through the door ready to be super, super valuable to your business and your game. You need to create value out of those players, and you do that through really good messaging, really good player engagement, and really good relationship building. So hopefully this has been valuable to you. I know Tom's going to open this up for any questions. We've got a little bit of time to answer some if you have any. I'm happy to take those.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Scott. I definitely would like folks to go ahead and send in questions that they may have. You can put them into the question pane, which you could probably find on your right-hand side that's there. And, you know, definitely go ahead and submit them. One question that I think came in, Scott, that we wanted to kind of ask you is, someone's asking about, you talked to like push messages and that kind of thing. Are there any language that you would recommend for getting the maximum on the calls to action, or ways to the language that you would use for people, to get them engaged?
In terms, well, let's talk about two things, because I'm not sure if you're talking about when asking for push permission or about when you're actually sending push messages. So let's talk about both. I actually wrote a blog post not long ago about how to do good push. So I'd suggest you go read that. It's on the PlayFab blog. And that talks about how to do a good pre-permission interstitial, pre-permission request, kind of like the examples I gave with Mountain Goat Mountain and Swords and Poker, right? And this is, again, about taking a moment in the game where it makes sense for a player when you're able to offer them a value proposition, whether it be a reward like, the Konami game didn't do such a great job of, or an opportunity for something valuable, a value like Mountain Goat Mountain did, where it said, hey, do you want to know when you get more coins? You're going to have a reward. You want to make sure you come back in when you get that. That is creating a clear value add. So you ask me a question like that, to which I'm most likely going to say yes, and then when I say yes, then ask me if I will accept push permission. It does two things. One, it sets me up to be willing to give you that permission because I know there's value attached to it. But because once you ask me for push permission, if I say no, you can't ask me again until you put out a new client update and I reinstall the client. So by doing that pre-permission interstitial, if I say, no, I'm not interested in hearing about coins in an hour, you just skip it. You don't give me the opportunity to deny the system dialogue, right? What you do is you give yourself an opportunity to ask me again at a later time when maybe I'm going to be a little more invested and engaged enough to give you that permission. So that's kind of the quick and dirty lecture on how to ask for permission in an effective way. As far as the push messages you actually send out, all of the rules apply. So think about the five qualities. You want to make them fun, you want to make them informative, you want to make them valuable, and you want to make them engaging. So clearly define why I should come back into the game. Is it, hey, you've got a reward ready, click now to receive it? Is it, hey, there's a special offer waiting for you? Now, one thing I want to caution about is that on Apple at least, you can't use push notifications to advertise. So you can't say, hey, there's a sale on swords, 50% off, come in today to get your sale. Apple does not allow that, and you'll get in trouble really, really quickly. That said, if the sword sale is part of, the weekend weapons bazaar or whatever event, you can absolutely let players know about an in-game event. Now, so you're not, disingenuous and abusive of that, I would suggest do that as part of some other in-game bonus that everybody gets. Maybe it's double XP this weekend or whatever else, or gold earning is 25% higher than normal. Make it some sort of event so players know they're like, oh yeah, I should totally go and play this weekend. They come in for the benefit, and then once I'm in for the benefit, then you can pop me the message in game saying, hey, swords are 50% off, want to buy one? That's bringing me in through value in the push message, letting me know about something timely and relevant to me, and giving me clear value and an action to complete to do it. Enter the game this weekend for the double XP weekend or whatever. And then once I'm in there and I'm doing these things, I'm going to want to be playing, and I'm going to want to be playing at a high level to earn at this accelerated rate, letting me know I can get a weapon that's going to help me do that at a discount if I buy it this weekend, timely, relevant, and a clear call to action on how to do that. That's how you can make these things work together and kind of create synergy about this. So, but whether it's push messaging, email messaging, Facebook messaging, in-app messaging, always think about the 5+2, right? Fun, informative, valuable, engaging, timely, and relevant. Always consider those elements in your messaging and think about how you can incorporate them. And it is absolutely possible to incorporate all of those into even a 140-character push message.
So we got a few other questions in. Let's see. So when it comes to share incentives, the Bejeweled example that was shared, did you find better success on a specific social or web platform? And if so, was this using the same offer and messaging?
So that's a fantastic question. And the answer is that it really depends on the platform. Different users like different things. So Bejeweled, the example that I showed, that was when Bejeweled Blitz specifically was just on Facebook. We hadn't released the mobile client yet. And so what we found very much is that our Facebook players liked engaging on Facebook. That was a platform they were on. If we asked them to go participate in something on Twitter, very low participation. If we asked our Twitter followers to go do something on Facebook, very low participation. But our Facebook players, and then later when we did mobile, our Facebook connected players from the mobile client, absolutely responded to those kind of rewards. But with people who were just mobile and weren't connected to Facebook, they didn't respond so much to those sorts of contests. They wouldn't participate in them. So that's when you want to create, messages for things that are going to be happening in the app for those customers on that platform. Facebook messages about those kinds of rewards that I suggested in that post might not work if you're a Steam game, but what might work for your Steam audience is letting them know that there's an event going on and there's a sale going on, or tying the value and the reward in that event to activity on a channel like Facebook. If you look at it and you're like, hey, we're going to have an event this weekend where you're earning more currency or you're earning more XP or something's going to be discounted, or there's going to be a tournament or something, and then tying the reward or the level of discount, the amount of value the community is going to get out of it to their participation in another channel, like a Facebook or on a web poll or something like that, where you say, we're going to every hour we're going to give away as many gold bars as this post gets likes. In fact, one of the first times we tried this on Facebook with Bejeweled Blitz, I did exactly that. It was an effort to beat Lil Wayne's attempt to set a world record on most liked Facebook posts. I think he got over 100,000 likes in a post, and it took him a little over a week. I decided to see if we could beat that with the Bejeweled audience, which was at the time literally the most engaged audience on the entire Facebook platform. And we posted that we would give away a link for as many coins in Bejeweled as the post got likes. And I think we hit 160,000 likes in less than 24 hours. It was phenomenal. So being able to tie a reward to that participation is a really good way to get people to transition between platforms and participate with you in more than just a native platform they might be on.
Perfect. We've got a few other questions. If you have more, please send them in. Do you have some strategies for paid games? I think they're really asking. We might have been talking about free-to-play.
Yeah, absolutely. So paid games, the big thing is once you have the value out of a customer in terms of them having paid for your game up front, you really want to think about your strategy. So there's a little bit of a difference, right? If your paid game is a one-and-done thing where your only expectation is that the customer just buys it up front and then there's no further interaction with them, then you don't have to worry about this. But if, like a lot of free-to-play and live service games, your goal is to really create a relationship with the customer and hold them over a long time, whether that's because you're going to have DLC or content pack updates that you're going to want to sell them in the future, if you're going to want to keep communication channels open with them so you can promote the sequel or another game from your studio in the future, then you do need to think about these things. And again, that's about letting them know when there's new content available, new weapons available, new events or player versus player modes, guild kind of challenges or quests they can participate in. Anything that's going to keep them engaged with your game and your company for the long term, you want to think about that. So in that regard, no, the strategy isn't really different for paid games, but sometimes paid games have different sets of needs than free-to-play or freemium games do. So with that, it's really just about determining what the goals are out of the relationship that you want to have with your customer. So with free-to-play games, it's usually the ability to sort of engage and retain over a longer period of time, which can be difficult because there's often far fewer updates and sort of ongoing participation needed in a paid game. But that's a good example of where you want to be able to get email permission, something that can be sort of a longer-term relationship. You want to be able to get them involved with your Facebook or your web communities, where they're going to create relationships with other players and an investment in your brand IP for your game that will sustain them over a longer period of time. So again, it goes back to the goal setting. What are your player types, and what's the relationship you want to have with them across this acquisition, engagement, conversion, and retention metrics?
And then one other, it looks like we have time for one more question. What's your advice for running competitions?
They're fantastic. So competitions, it's hard to say generally speaking what you should do overall. It really depends on the game and again, what your goals are for it. But I certainly encourage them. So, you can have them in a very small scale like that Facebook example from Bejeweled Blitz that you saw me put up. That's an example of a competition, right? We encourage users to participate in a certain way for the chance to win something. Great way to drive it. And what you can expect is that the lower the entry fee, if you will, in this case it was, hey, give us a like. The lower the entry fee, the greater the participation you'll have. The lower the entry fee and the greater the reward, the way greater participation you'll have. Now, the harder you make the entry fee, the larger you make the entry fee, whether it's filling out a web form, inviting friends, spending money, coming into the game and playing for hours on end. The higher that entry barrier, the bigger the reward has to be. All goes back to that concept of, how do you correctly incentivize push notification permission. The activity you are asking the player to commit to, the engagement level you're requiring, the reward has to be proportional to that. It has to be enough. Classic psychological motivation, right? You need to be able to give somebody enough of a reward to get them to participate in the activity you want. Now, competitions within games, tournaments, whatever you want to do, these are really great ways to motivate people and get people, especially to participate in activities they might not otherwise, or get your highly engaged players to come and spend or participate in ways that they may have exhausted or aren't normally going to do. So they're a really good way to motivate. But again, competitions are basically just a way to tie a new reward into a gameplay activity that you want people to participate in. So again, how you structure it really doesn't matter. Just make sure that the value is enough to overcome the barrier to entry you're putting for participation.
Perfect. Well, I want to first of all thank everyone who joined us today for today's webinar. We appreciate it, and I also want to thank Scott, who once again provided a great presentation. As always, we will make the presentation and the video available for people who may have questions. And we hope that you'll spend the time to join us for our next set of webinars, which you can find on playfab.com/webinars, and they're free to sign up. And as always, if you have any questions for us, we look forward to. With that, thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
And we're going to go ahead and end today's webinar. Thank you.